Welcome back to Horns High Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Metal. I got my friend Shane here from Winnipeg, Manitoba. What's up, dude?
Not too much. Ready to get going, man. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about the new album from the Canadian band Decryptor. This is their debut album titled Imminent Ruin. Just dropped back in February, so this one's hot off the presses. And you turned me on to these guys, actually, Pete. So I'm curious, How did you hear about them?
I'm trying to think because I have a few different ways I find out about new stuff. Most likely, it was either the band or their label, if they've got a label, that sent me it through Bandcamp, because a lot of them, when I buy stuff, I'll be added to their mailing list or their list, and then when they got new stuff or new shirts or whatever, I get these emails. That may be where I found out about them, but other than that, I can't think of another way. That would have had to have been it.
Well, since then, I've seen their album a few times on Twitter, with pretty good reviews on it, but yeah, pretty obscure, so not a band I've heard anything about, and there's really not a lot of information out there on Decryptor, so this is their debut album, and they haven't been in any other bands that I could really find, probably local ones and everything, so this is going to be short and sweet here, and
well, they're from your homeland there.
That's right.
We did tonight, the episode we did before this was Skeletal Remains, so we had a little U.S.-Canadian thing going down tonight. So
Decryptor can be categorized as a combo of death thrash and melodic death metal, and it has a real old-school tone to it, and I hear a lot of old-school metal influence in it. Judging from the photos, they look like they're the type of band that likes to have fun. And,
yes, I love
they're
that.
obviously here, a four-piece band hailing out of Victoria, British Columbia, and that's on the west coast of Canada. There's been some pretty big Canadian, metal, thrash, punk bands out of British Columbia. To name a few, we've had 3 Inches of Blood, DOA, Dayglow Abortions, Strapping Young Lads, Unleash the Archers, Archspire. So, yeah, they've always had a pretty big metal scene out in British Columbia. One thing that I remember from my youth about British Columbia is that anytime any one of your buddies went out to British Columbia, you always hope they bring you back some of that killer BC Bud and a case of Kokanese beer. So that's what they were known for when I was a youth.
Nice. That's funny. Yeah, this picture just cracks me up, man.
So anyways, I digress. Their new album, Imminent Ruin, was released late February, and this is an independent release. They're currently unsigned. They say they've been working on this album for about 3 years. They recorded everything themselves in their home studio. So they did a pretty decent job with the mixing and the sound, considering it's their first album. And they said they were basically learning as they went along.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we'll go through the lineup here quick. Dean Fast on guitar and lead vocals. We have Justin Jart on guitar, Jesse Wilson on bass, and Caleb Belknap Griffin on drums. So they're a melodic death metal band, as I said, but I hear a lot of other influences in this album. It's definitely thrashy, and I hear influences from classic metal in it, like maybe some Iron Maiden even, like definitely some Death and Slayer. A lot of it has kind of that Norway, Sweden, Scandinavian feel to it. There's a lot of riffage and chunky grooves in here. The rhythm is mid to fast paced. Some of the rhythm progressions even gave me, like kind of a mid-career Mastodon vibe with a little bit of progginess. And
interesting.
Yeah, the vocals definitely, though, 100% death metal. They're not over the top, though, but still very intelligible. And this is something I've noticed with a lot of the death thrash bands over the last few years, something that, people would call death thrash, that it's very thrashy, but with death metal growls.
Right.
So that's what these guys are like. And they definitely got good energy going on here. Yeah, me too. That's one of my favorites. And they got good energy going on here, too, with the dueling leads and some killer soloing.
Yes.
So, like I
very
say, the
impressive.
riffs, yeah, it is. It's really good for a debut. You know, it's a mix of like a catchy groove and thrash and death, melodic death, doom death.
Right.
Drumming and bass are both solid. There's some heavier, faster parts, but all in all, I'd say it's fairly accessible death metal album. It's quite palatable. It's not going to scare your average metalhead who's maybe not into death metal as much.
Right. Yeah,
And,
I knew when I heard these guys, I'm like, man, I got to turn Shane onto this shit because I knew you would dig it. So that's cool. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Lyrically, it's themed around ruin, and which is hinted at in the album title, Imminent Ruin. First
Right.
track off the album, Caldera, is a banger. It references the destruction of Pompeii. The cover art is actually public domain, titled The Last Days of Pompeii. The third track, Absence, gives me the one that gives me the Maiden vibe. Another great track, Downfall, that's all about war.
Yeah.
Cloud of Dread is about internal struggle. The bass really sticks out nicely on Cloud of Dread. Blight is another great song.
Yeah, I love that one.
The closer, Xibalba, is a catchy tune. Now, Xibalba is the name of the underworld in Mayan mythology, and it's a fitting closer to an album about ruin and everything that can be destroyed. And I just like saying Xibalba. It's a fun word too.
There's a band, a one-man band that is a listener of Murder Metal Mayhem that had Zabalba 33 was his band name.
Yeah, it's
I never
fun.
knew what it meant.
Anyways, it's just a damn fine album from a young, upcoming Canadian band. I'm sure they'll refine their sound a bit as they progress. It's definitely a band I'll be keeping my eye on. So if you like death thrash, melodic death metal with hints of old school metal influences in it, go check them out. Check out their Bandcamp, and they also have a YouTube, so go subscribe and give them a like. We got Decryptor, Imminent Ruin.
Hell yeah. I reached out to them, and Caleb, the drummer, contacted me back. We had a little bit of a dialogue, so I think we'll be able to line up an interview with them, Shane. That would be
cool.
fun. Yeah. So good stuff, man.
Find
always
out a bit
happy
more about them.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, there you guys got some homework to do. We just laid it out for you. And we'll see you next time on 666 Seconds of Metal.
Horns fucking high.